Good morning, Mansur. Good morning, Rodas.
Good morning, Professor.
Morning.
Good morning,
Turn my
Doctor.
sound.
Good morning, Professor.
Good morning. All right, let's see. Let me make sure. Let's see here. Are you seeing the screen that's showing the textbook now?
Yes.
Okay, good, very good. We'll wait for others to join us. How's it going with your proposals?
Good morning.
Well,
Good morning.
yes,
Good
it's going
morning.
well. Good morning, Dr. Hanan.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Dr. Holiday.
Good morning. Hello. I know Samia said she's going to be a few minutes late, so we can do some quick review, some little summary here. So everything's going well with those proposals, sounds like. That's really good. Did you find that template helpful? Good. All right. Well, in addition to what I want to cover here in chapter 24, I'm also going to bring up some of our past presentations and kind of go through some of that content again. I think some of those might be helpful as well to just review today. So we'll do that as well. So. All right. Okay. So when I was going through and setting up these different weeks, of course, I knew that we would already be far along because it even says in the syllabus that you would be working on your proposals and kind of past some of the writing as far as that goes. But for you, Mansour and Rodas, you'll still be writing your thesis. So I wanted to just talk about some of the writing strategies. Again, that's why I added some of this content here. So, creating interest by varying sentence patterns. So that's very important. So it's a technique that writers use, and all writers use it. Writers of nonfiction, writers who are writing fiction, writers who are just doing biographies and historical documents. To make it interesting, they play with the language, and this is some of the things that they do, and to engage the reader. So it's like it says here, the variety, the spice of life, as the cliche goes, is no less important in writing than in any other activity, and that's very, very true. You just want to do more than just put words on the paper. Even if those words are saying what you want them to say, you want to make it interesting for the reader. So indeed, varying sentence structure, length, and type will help you maintain your reader's interest and create emphasis, which is essential to forceful and effective writing. So that's the premise of this chapter. Okay, so create interest by varying sentence structure. No rule demands that a complete sentence begin with a subject followed by a verb. Interesting writing uses a variety of sentence patterns. So this is, that's just very, very true. Once we've established, that foundation, and we understand how, language works and how English grammar, just the basic concepts of it, and then we can start to play with the structure of it. And a lot of this stuff is just intuitive, as you write and you read, and you understand how information is communicated through the written language in English, you don't even really think about these concepts. Not really, because your mind just knows that you enjoyed reading a particular author's style of writing, and so you mimic that. I do that. I write fiction, and I do that myself. I have a few authors that I really like their style and how they move the narrative. And so I mimic that. I don't even know what that style is called. I just know that from reading so many of their books, it's become a part of what I do. So a lot of this stuff is not always explicit. It's just implicit many times. Okay. So begin with a verb. A verb, because it's an action word, it involves some momentum, in the reading, which is really, really nice, because it in our brain, it triggers something, right? Something is happening, and it's not it's just static. So gradually the air became thinner, and the mountain climbers had difficulty breathing. So near the summit, they were forced to use bottled oxygen. So and then again, began with an infinitive, and this is one that's not used too often, but it is a good technique to outline one's children is to outlive one's children is a parent's nightmare. Okay, to determine the guilt of a defendant is the job of a jury, not of the newspapers. Okay, so that it's a good technique. One I don't use that one too often. So a lot of these can just be personal choice. You can try it, and if it doesn't look right, change it, revise it. Begin and end with a participle or participial phrase. Okay, a participle is a verb turned into an adjective. Participles in ed, ing, det, or n. So a participial phrase is a group of words containing a participle. So found in all living things, nucleic acid carries information that determines heredity. In 1884, Mark Twain published The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, considered one of the greatest novels in American literature, even to this day. So this second one is one that people use a lot. That's very common to do that. Okay, so begin with an adjective. Extinct. The Hittite language was spoken more than 3,000 years ago in Asia Minor. So that's also one that's not used a whole lot, but yeah, it is effective. Different from Western tongues, Finnish, Hungarian, and Estonian are not members of the Indo-European language group. So, and here it says to reverse the position. Well, anyway, are there any questions on this? I'm kind of flying through that pretty quickly. Let me slow down. Do you have a preference in some of these? When you're writing, does something here look like that sounds a lot like my tone and my voice, something that I use quite often in my writing? You see anything like that here?
Well, for me, I try to avoid generalization, um, and try to support the points with evidence as much as I can, because I can see that the most easiest critique that you can receive is where is the evidence, or this is too subjective. or this is a very generalized statement. Um, Even if it is something well known, I think in academic writing,
Mhm.
we try to be as specific as possible and to support our ideas as much as we can.
Oh, yes. Very good. Yes. So, hi, Samia. Welcome.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, Professor. Good
Good
morning,
morning.
everyone.
So we're going through chapter 24 of the connections textbook, Samia. So we're just here
Okay, sure, sure, Professor. I'll catch up, and I'm sorry, like no matter how
sure.
much
No, no,
because I was
you're
working
you're
on
you're
this till late. So
absolutely, absolutely. We're just talking about how important it is to just have that variety in the writing to keep the learner engaged. And one of the things that Dr. Awaad was just sharing with us is that it's important to be specific, to also to show that evidence. We make a lot of claims in our writing, and we will make assumptions, and but we want to be more explicit than implicit, because you want to assume nothing in academic writing. So, yeah, sure, we're all, at the graduate level, we have two PhDs, in the class, but I can assure you, I will not know everything about what you are writing about, and in some cases, I don't know anything about it. So, as I'm reading a thesis or a dissertation, and I read a lot of research papers, like I mentioned several times before, I review a lot of articles for a lot of different journals. And if the writer uses, some language, and they did it give some kind of a definition about that particular term, and they're just assuming that everyone knows it, for me, I immediately point that out. That is one of the low-hanging fruits of critiquing. Yes, Lotus? I'm sorry. I thought
Sorry,
Lotus.
Professor.
Oh, you're fine.
Yes.
Okay, so as for what I was asking Mansoor and Rhodas, Samia, as you joined, was we talked about these different techniques here, beginning with a verb, beginning with an infinitive, begin with a preposition or prepositional phrase, or begin with or end with a participle or participial phrase. And then we talked about here, begin with an adjective, a reverse position. We haven't talked about this yet, but I was asking, are any of these techniques something that yes, Samia.
no, definitely, Professor. We are. I'm like I personally is making sure that my grammar and everything is all good. But what you just said that about the meaning of each word means, are you looking for the data dictionary to be added in the thesis? Because uh, is that
No,
the okay?
no, but if you use a term, I know from working in wireless telecommunications that there are some terms that we use that are not common terms. It's part of the language that engineers speak,
Mhm.
right, in that industry. And if I
Right.
was writing a paper that I was going to publish, I
Mhm.
would know that I need to provide some context for that term, because people want to know what it is. That's all I'm saying, is that if you
Totally agree.
use some,
Totally agree. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
okay,
Thank you
good.
for
Is that
clarifying.
clear?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I don't want your paper to read like a dictionary, and where you have to define every
No,
word.
we sometimes we do that, and in my field, we sometimes definitely create data dictionary, but that becomes like totally different part that we
Mhm.
have like one document which is explaining everything, and then it's navigating to a data dictionary where
Mhm.
as a hyperlink, when somebody clicks, they're going on SharePoint, and we have that data dictionary. So that's like totally different. So just what was
Mhm.
making sure that that's what we are looking on. If not, but for sure, definitely I am explaining each and everything when it comes to any specific terminologies related to agile scrum and what exactly something means. Like briefly I am explaining, So yeah, when you get a chance, means when I have my draft ready, and thank you for giving me 2 additional days. I'll definitely let you know when it's ready. But I'm making sure that I am explaining each and everything briefly, if not like very descriptive for a particular word. But yeah, thank you.
Mhm. Very good. Yeah. That's, and the reason that that's important because as soon as a reader, it happens with all of us, right? We're reading something and we get to some terms, and the author hasn't really explained what that term is. It's just this an assumption that there's a certain community or a demographic that's reading that paper and that everyone understands it. Then we just become disengaged because it's almost like you're not invited, So they'll move on. That kind of feeling that you get when you're reading something like that. So that's why you want to make sure that you want to invite the reader in by helping them to understand these concepts. Okay, good. All right, good. All right. Okay, then we were talking about reversing the position of the subject and verb. I think that's very basic. I'm not going to review that, but I did want to get to this. I think this is something that is really helpful in establishing or accomplishing what I was just talking about, and that is to use a colon. That's just it's something that I think that's just not utilized enough in academic writing. A lot of times you will see things that they're just kind of go on within the sentence, but I think it's nice to do that, and it kind of sets up your subheaders in your sections that you're going to talk about particular um, topics. So I think that colons need to be used a little more, and because they're a great way to just introduce concepts that you're going to be talking about. It also helps people to understand, what you're meaning by something like, for instance, 5 languages make up the Romance language subgroup, and that could have stopped right there. They didn't have to say anything more, but they helped us by listing those 5 languages: French, Italian, Portuguese, Romanian, and Spanish. So that's very helpful to do that. So think about that as you're writing. You make a statement like this, and then then show it. Kind of list it. So I just think that this is great. I now use it more here, so I have this one highlighted in green. This other one, oxygen, is abundant on only one planet in the solar system, Earth. I mean, most of us probably could have figured that out, So I think that might be just kind of a waste of a colon. You just could have said here, Earth, is the only planet in the solar system where oxygen is abundant. So this one I don't agree too much with this one. I wouldn't use it. That's just personal choice. This second one here is where I would use the colon more often than not. Okay, well, good. Any questions on that? Anyone have anything else they want to say about that before I move on? Okay. And if you do, you can always speak up and say, hey, I had a comment on this particular thing, if something pops into your head. Okay, this is a very open forum, so you can raise your hand, and if you have a comment to say or just speak up, I don't mind if you just speak up. So, all right.
No, the only
Okay.
point sorry, Professor. So
No,
the
go ahead.
only I have been experiencing, like, okay, we add a colon, and maybe, I don't know, you came up to that situation. So you use a colon, and okay, that is the good, because it's really combining those all separate words into one sentence. But as we are using many, like I use Grammarly, I don't know about others, I use Grammarly, and sometimes there is a glitch between Grammarly and Word that one of it will say, no, it's wrong. And you just keep on going and correcting it. But then you end up believing one, okay, let's just go with either Word or Grammarly. But I have been into those situations. But yeah, we'll keep in mind that we are correct when we are combining so many words into one, then we should use column. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, you hear a lot of computer scientists they kind of chuckle when people, get so excited about ChatGPT and all of the other generative AI. And they say, well, we've been using generative AI for a decade. And that's exactly what's in Word and Grammarly. Those are just, it's just AI. It's just telling you there's not a person on the other end correcting
Correct.
your paper. It's AI that's built into the platform. So, and you're absolutely right. Sometimes they don't get it right because they assume that you're trying to say something. So it's just trying to do the best that they can to interpret what you're trying to say. But you have to be very careful to watch what they're saying. Like you're doing a text message, and sometimes your smartphone will correct a word, but you didn't really mean for it to correct that word. You meant the word the way you had it typed in, and then all of a sudden you go back and you read your text and go, oh, how did that happen? Because it did some autocorrect thing, and it's kind of weird. So yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, sometimes the platforms will not disagree because the AI is thinking differently. That's a very good thing this year. Thank you. Yep. So beware of that. Don't put all of your eggs into one basket, as they say, with those tools, those online grammar tools. Okay. So combined through coordination. Okay, so this first one they're saying is choppy. So let's read this one and see what they're saying. This one is choppy, and let's see if we can actually hear that. In the 2nd century BCE, Mongoloid peoples sailed across the Straits of Korea. They invaded Japan. They brought with them many ancient customs that survive in Japan to this day. They also introduced the Shinto religion into the islands of Japan. This region is based on the worship of nature. It teaches that a divine presence fills the natural world. Fills the natural world. Okay, so I think I know what they're saying here. It breaks it up a little bit too much. There's this quick, short sentences. So I think what they're going to do in this next one is kind of create some flow and connect some of these independent clauses, maybe with some prepositions, and maybe connect some dependent independent clauses with a comma. So let's see how they fix this. So in the 2nd century BCE, Mongolian people sailed across the Straits of Korea and they invaded Japan. So see, instead of putting that short sentence in there like that, they just went ahead and added that independent clause with a conjunction here. Okay, so it flows. So they don't stop, because that period means you pause, all right? And so that and then it kind of it'll sound like that. And the reason why they do that is because you don't realize it, but your brain is working as you're reading, and it becomes exhausting to pause and then go and then pause. And that's why you don't want to do this, because you will exhaust your reader. They'll just, like, okay, that was enough. I'm going to read a couple of pages, and then I'm going to take a break. So we don't know that this is going on, but it does happen subconsciously. It's just the way our brains work. So it's like, with the internal combustion engine, they say that when you're moving along steady, your gas mileage is much more efficient than if you're stopping and going and you're within town. So that's why large vehicles get terrible gas mileage. Overall, they just don't get very good gas mileage, but their gas mileage increases, exponentially when they're on the freeway and they're steady and they're never going steadily, but stopping and going causes, this whole chain reaction, to happen again, and it uses more fuel that way, which is just kind of a weirdest thing ever to think that you use more fuel going around town, stopping and going, than you would if you're just going 30 miles consistently on a freeway. It was a strange phenomenon, so I'm kind of comparing the way our brains think. We expend a lot of energy, you have to stop and go like that. So, any questions on that? Does that make sense? And why you would do that? This one? Yes.
So Professor, I know, okay, we are trying to give a brain break to our readers.
Mhm.
But at the same time, when it comes to the formatting of the document, do we want to give like, okay, one paragraph ends and here starts the new paragraph and we have a tab space there. So wouldn't that be like enough for the reader to have that brain break or?
Mhm. Yes, so between paragraphs, absolutely, and that's why you do that's why in APA style formatting, because you're double spacing, you want to indent the paragraphs, just like you said, because that lets you know, okay, another paragraph is starting here. So
Right.
so yes, that is very true. But in this instance, they're talking about, they created a paragraph here, but they could have accomplished this by just showing us these first two sentences. They didn't have to do this. They should give us a passage here. And so they wanted to show us how this can be, you can accomplish this throughout the passage. And again, so down here, this religion is based on the worship of nature. It teaches that a divine presence fills the natural world. And so here, this religion is based on the worship of nature, for it teaches that a divine presence fills the natural world. That's that second one. This is good. I wouldn't write it like that. I think this for it teaches is kind of archaic. I don't think a lot of people talk like that, but I could see what they're trying to say. This religion is based on the worship of nature. Uh, uh, you know, because it teaches that, a divine presence fills the natural world. So, that's maybe that's something you can use there. But yeah, so think of this example as Samia is really just talking about the sentence structure. They just gave the paragraph here as an example of how you can fix it. But yes, as you're writing your paper and you're transitioning from one paragraph to the other, those transitions are very, very important. They have to be relevant. You just, all of a sudden you're talking about one thing and then boom, you're on to another thing. If you're going to change the topic, sometimes those subheaders are really helpful for the reader to know that, okay, now we're talking about something else. Because if they go to the next paragraph and it's completely different, and it's no longer talking about the thing that was in the previous paragraph, there's not a nice smooth transition, that can also disengage a reader. So good. So this is that along the lines that what you're talking about, Sonia?
No, yeah, definitely agree, Professor, that that string, that mapping needs to be there between the paragraphs. Yeah, but I was just like, yeah, maybe I was not getting to your point that maybe some writers would write something in a very, very descriptive way, which might not be even necessary, and
Mm-hmm.
some would write it in a brief way, but it will still make sense. Yeah, but I was just like focusing on the brain break, that we have that tab space between the paragraph. But certainly I agree that there needs to be a mapping between one paragraph to another paragraph. It shouldn't be like totally different, that what I'm reading in one and then it's like totally different. But it also depends on the section. I
Mm-hmm.
guess that if one of my section is there and then that is one paragraph and here starts the new section. Now this
Mm-hmm.
new section will talk totally different thing. Uh, I mean, yeah, towards around the subject, but it's like little different than the other one. So in those cases, probably the mapping wouldn't be there, right?
Right. So, but you would have somehow given some kind of a preview or foreshadowing in that previous paragraph that, now, we're going to transition to this next. So you just want to kind of give the reader, I don't want to say a warning, but just kind of give them some kind of clue that okay, now, so we were talking about this, and as we wind down this paragraph, then this stuff that we talked about here previously actually is relevant to this, and now the new paragraph starts to talk about that new concept.
Sure. Yeah, correct. Totally agree. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. That makes sense.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, good. Good questions. Those are very good questions. Mansoor and Rhoda, do you have anything? You want to? Okay. All right. So combine through subordination. Okay. So this is what's first one is choppy. All right. The Mohawks lived in. Okay. Good. Thank you, Rhoda. The Mohawks lived on the East Coast. They were one of the 5 nations of the Iroquois Confederacy. 3 other members of the Confederacy were the, I cannot pronounce some of these Native American names, Cayuga, Oneida. Cayuga?
Yeah,
Okay.
Cayuga.
Okay, thank you. Oneida, and what is this one on the Onondaga nations. Yeah. And then, I did my my DNA, and I actually have about 1%.
Oh, I'm about to do that. I always feel like doing it, but I always miss it.
Okay, so they inhabited what is now central New York. It's central New York State. The Senecas controlled the West. They lived near Lake Erie. I think this one was pretty easy to see how this really chops it up. It's just too much effort in some of these, right? I think those are pretty obvious. So let's look how they decided to fix that. The Mohawks who lived on the East Coast were one of the 5 nations of the Iroquois Confederacy. So that's what they did. They just took those first 2 sentences, and they made one. Okay. So and then they just took the subordinate clause and they just connected it. So of all 3 members of the Confederacy, the Cayuga, Oneida, and the Onondaga inhabited what is now central New York State. The Senecas controlled the West, living near Lake Erie. So that's a really nice sentence. I like how they fixed that. That's nice. It flows well. Any questions there on that?
No, Professor, just one question. So you like the more combined approach than the choppy approach, correct?
Yeah, that's my personal, and a lot of this is personal preference. You can find your own way to combine that, but I do think that I think we all would agree that you don't have to have 2 short sentences like this. That's it's just I think for most of us we can just see that, right? It's just that's not necessary to do that.
Yeah, totally agree. So back to basics, I think when it comes to paragraph, it should be linked together properly. It doesn't have to be choppy. But in few scenarios, it could be that we end up adding something which would look choppy. But usually in a generic situation, like when we are writing, we always want to have our paragraph sequenced together. It doesn't have to be that we just separate one sentence to another. So yeah, I think I do agree with the combined approach. Thank you.
Very good. Yes. It's like I said, this is my personal preference to write like this. It's just, I just feel like this just flows. And to your point, and again, we're just, I'm thinking at the sentence level within the paragraph, and not just necessarily one paragraph to the next. And again, this could also be fixed by using colons. I think that this is another way to do that if you wanted to list things out. So I think that's another way to fix that. Yeah, very good. Good. All right. Okay. Any questions here before I move on? So this is just some of the things that I wanted you to see, to look at. Some of these things we've already talked about. I'm not going to go in the use of rhetorical questions and things like that, because we've talked about that in other lectures. But be sure to review, especially once you're in ROTAS, because you haven't started on your thesis yet. Make sure that you're reviewing just some of this stuff. Like this is really helpful, really good, and it will be helpful as you're writing your proposal as well, because you do want some of that narrative to flow well. All right, but of course it's not as important as it is going to be when you're writing your actual thesis statement. Anyone want to add anything else before I move on? I just wanted to look at some of the previous lectures and kind of go through some things that we've covered before. Okay, well, let's go ahead. Okay, so do I need to change? Do I need to share again? Are you looking at where it says become an active reader? Do you see that?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, oh, good. All right, so I wasn't sure that would show up. There we go. Good. So this is, this is very important. This is what I was saying before. The more you read, the more fluent a writer you become. It's just absolutely true. I told you that I have some, I love Shakespeare. I love Robert E. Howard. He was a fantasy writer from the early 20th century American writer. He was a heavyweight prize fighter, but he created the Conan series, so the Conan the Barbarian series of writings. But he had a style of writing that was just really good. I like his technique of narrative, and he probably, like many other fantasy writers, picked up some of his style from Tolkien, who is arguably the best fantasy writer of all times, and probably created the genre. He is with a lot of writers of fantasy, tried to mimic to some degree what J.R.R. Tolkien did, The Hobbit, and that series of writing. Another writer that I really like is Robert Markham. He writes crime novels and things like that, but I like that he includes, when you're reading his novels, it's like an education, because he includes so much historical context within his story. It's really good. Another writer who does a similar thing was Michael Crichton. He was the one who created Jurassic Park. He did a lot of research, and you read his science fiction, you're thinking, boy, this could really happen, because he does include actual research that is real, and he blends into fiction with it. So very, very good writing techniques. And then some of the others, I like John Steinbeck. And then there's some of the contemporary writers that I like as well, because I'm really into science fiction and fantasy. So you hear me talk about a lot science sci-fi writers who I really like. So Robert Jordan, was great, and then of course Brandon Sanderson now, and Orson Scott Card did different writers do different things. But as you read these different writers, and you all probably have your favorites, I'm going to just say that it probably has a lot to do with their voice and the technique that they use as they're writing. And I think this is something that you probably admire, and it engages you. And so, you like that writer style of writing. And so you go back to them and you read a lot of what they've written. So reading and writing are interdependent, so opposite sides of the same coin. So, and that's a very, very, very true. They say reading is the key to all knowledge, and that certainly is true when it comes to being a good writer. Becoming a good reader will affect your writing. Effective readers digest, interpret, and evaluate what they read. So it's basically what I was just saying. So, just I'm curious. So, share with the class, everyone. Share with me at least one or two of your favorite writers, and then tell me why you like their style.
So, Professor, I like one of the Indian writer. He writes in the English as well. I don't know if you know his name, Rabindranath Tagore.
Okay.
I've been reading him from the childhood, coming from India, So, so I used to read all his rhymes and his books, and he's very famous. I think he's famous worldwide, but I think he's more famous in the Asia content, I would say. So if you will, so I always loved reading his stories, his rhymes, and really. And another is definitely Shakespeare. So I have been focused from childhood. Like now, I think as I grew up and came to IT, I think I read many read many writers, but which touched my heart from the childhood is these two, Rabindranath Tagore and Shakespeare.
Oh, great. Hey, you can put the other author in the chat if you want to. I would love to look up that.
Yeah,
Is
no,
some of this?
definitely. You will love the way he writes his poems is very heart touching. So that's why he's like everybody's favorite in India and the Asia continent. So definitely let me write his name in the chat for sure.
Okay, absolutely. And I know sometimes when they translate writing into other languages, it kind of loses some of the effectiveness. But I would love to read some of his writing.
And sorry, I'm forgetting one more name. He's
Yes.
also I don't know. He's also very famous, and he is known as the most educated person in the world. Dr. Bhim Rao Ambedkar.
Okay.
And there is his statue also in the UK. I think in the Howard University or which university, I'll give you that information. But they actually made a statue there, and his writing is also, and he's been writing more when it comes to like actually everything, whether it's sociology, whether it's politics, and he actually wrote the entire Indian Constitution.
Oh,
He alone wrote the entire Indian Constitution. So yeah, he's one of also my favorite writers. Thank you.
oh, good. Absolutely. Great. Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's excellent. Yeah, I know that, for instance, I do like um, um, Tolstoy, but I know that his writing was originally in Russian, and I think probably parts of it is in German as well. But I read the translated versions of his writing, but I do like the translated versions of Tolstoy. I think it's really good. And then some of the what we know as writers weren't really writers; they were orators. Homer, Euripides, they weren't writers; they were orators. And in these stories that they tell, um, the um, uh, the Odyssey, and the Oedipus Rex and some of these other great, Greek stories weren't really written; they were verbally told, so they were poets. And a lot of those just massive poems that they would, recite in these arenas. So that's and of course, as you well know, also that Shakespeare's writings were meant to be heard, because that was. Oh, thank you for sharing that. I see that too. Share that. Good. All right. So very good. Very good. Mansoor, Rhodas, do you have any of your favorite authors you'd like to share with us? And just. And the reason I'm asking is because I want you to think about it. Go ahead, Rhodas.
Not much of a reader.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I'm not much of a reader, so I haven't read a lot of books growing up.
Okay.
But there were local writers, authors here, but I don't know their names.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just my honest.
Yeah. No. So tell me, in your culture, were a lot of the stories they were shared verbally? Because I've known in a lot of my wife does a lot of genealogy, and I know that she gets to cultures where the genealogy isn't written; it's just verbal, and it was shared through generations. So is that similar to your culture? What is?
Mm, So, not really. There are books, historical books, so
Mhm.
ancient books. So you're aware that the oldest Bible is from Ethiopia, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So there are old uh, um, um, Christianity related books, the Book of Enoch and stuffs like that.
Mhm.
Even from recent ones, there's this book, Kibra Nagest, Fitha Nagest, which is Fitha Nagest is basically rules for everyone to follow,
Mhm.
which can include when to fast, when not to fast, what to eat when fasting, and stuffs like that.
No.
And for the Fitha Nagest, it's, with the Kibra Nagest, it's related with the royalties. What do you call it? Kibir is royalties uh, value, or yeah, their values and the tradition and stuff like that. I haven't read it, but I
Mhm.
know a general point of view from those points.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Okay, that's very good.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. One of the things I wanted to ask you too is, as you're going through, clearly you have a very good education. You've made it to this point. You're finishing up graduate education. Um, so uh, as you've been studying in academia, um, have you come across some academic writing that you prefer over others?
Mm, yes, so I prefer um, those that are logic based. So it's easier for me to understand how they come about to their conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm more of, numbers based person. So I like to see, okay, what made you conclude or come up to this conclusion. So I want to see that percentage in, even in my job. I'm an analyst, so we're more focused on even the impact, even current status. We're more focused on numbers. So
Mm-hmm.
prove it is the main the main question that we as an analyst ask is, what's your proof?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the numbers? So
Yes.
yeah, I'm more of logic based
Very,
and analytical
very,
person. So yeah.
very good. Very good. There's a little saying that they say there's your left brain, right brain, meaning that, right. So, but very good. So, did you hear
Yes, so
Dr.
the left is for creativity and the right is for
Okay, yeah.
left is for creativity, yeah. The right is
Mhm.
for
Right.
math and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and of course it's
But
not as
it's ironic in my case, because I graduated in architecture, so
yeah, so you're
yeah.
creative as well. Yeah, yeah, it's not as cut and dry as that. It's not. They're yeah, they blend together. I've rarely seen anyone who's just completely, creative and has no analytical, capabilities. That's I don't think that's a thing. It might even that
Yes,
might be a
totally agree.
disorder.
Yes.
But so good. So thank you for sharing that. That's very very good. So I knew you heard Dr. Awad's comments about how it has to have evidence. I think that is along along the same lines that you're talking about there. There should be a logical connection to why you're making that assumption and that claim. So
Yes,
you need to. So
I
good.
definitely
So
agree. Yes.
so good. Very good. So as you're writing, you would keep that in mind because it's for you it's intuitive. You feel like it has to provide that. So very good, very good. So you see what I'm getting at here. I'm trying to help you all to understand as you're writing, you want to. It's like the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. As a writer and as a reader, you want to make sure that you're providing your readers with enough context to help them to comprehend and to stay engaged with what you're writing. Very good. Mansoor, did you have some authors that you wanted to share with us? So you have a favorite author, or maybe you're more analytical, like Rhodas there? What are your thoughts on this? Okay, so I'm not sure. I think we maybe you might be muted, Mansoor, if you are speaking, or maybe he had to step away. But we'll come back to Mansoor. But good. So
Yes, Professor, I'm hearing.
oh, okay, good. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, Professor. I'm actually in love with reading, but if I
Okay.
find the time. So in my case, I love our traditional books, our cultural books, but in my case, the books are more in a poetic form. So we have the books with poems because our language is very rich in the in linguistic culture.
Mhm.
We have great poets in Persian language. So I
Mhm.
love to read those books. But nowadays, if you want to learn a profession or learn modern knowledge, we have to stick to the English language because it's been like 100 years that the language is not updated. It's not the knowledge or the information is not being updated with our own language. That's why we don't anymore stick to to a language to study or to learn new knowledge or modern knowledge information. That's why yes, we prefer to we have to. I mean, it's not only about my language, because English nowadays is the only source of the sole source of gaining knowledge and information. So in professional or in a modern area. So yes, I love to read. I love to study, but I'm in love with studying poems, and yes.
Oh, good. Very good. Yeah, very good. I thank you for sharing that. That was educational for me. I didn't realize that. So that's very, very, very good. Yeah, so English is more of a universal language, and because business drives, right? Almost everything comes down to business, international business, and it's the common language across all cultures as they're dealing in business, and I guess it's become that way in the higher education throughout the world. A lot of institutions uh, teach and conduct their content in the English language. And of course there's some variations of English, right? So you have the British and the American English, and I think in certain parts of the world you'll see more of that British language. My wife and I like to watch a lot of the British productions, and we think that they do very well with period pieces when they're so accurate. But sometimes the language is so different that we don't even know some of the words are, and we look in the subtitles to see, what that is. So even with English, there's some variations in how people use that language, and there are words and phrases that they use that are different in the United States than it would be in Canada or in Great Britain and Australia. So, and of course, you're probably all aware of that. I think I only speak English, and I've tried Spanish for years, took it in high school, and even tried out first, but I'm not very good at it. There's some things that I understand in Spanish, but beyond that, I'm not very good.
My son is also learning Spanish. I think from his elementary or I think middle school, but I don't know if he can speak. So I don't know. I mean, taking it as a language and learning it is one thing, but then talking in it and speaking in it, and then like really making it a day-to-day language is very different.
Yeah. Yes. I have five, adult children, and my youngest,
Yeah.
four girls and one son. My youngest daughter, the youngest in the family, she's the youngest of our children. She spent time in Italy, and she loved the Italian language, and she spent time in Italy for a church. She served a mission over there, and then she went back to do an internship. Um, but she's very fluent in Italian.
In
And
Italian.
then
Okay.
she says it's helped her with some of the other, like they talked about the Romance languages here in the lecture today. It helps her with Spanish and Portuguese as well, knowing Italian. So, but
Thank you,
good,
sir.
very good. Thank you everyone for sharing. That's very important. So my point, and Professor Awaad, did you want to share anything about your favorite authors? I don't want to leave you out.
No, it's okay. I'm enjoying this discussion. Mansoor, you mentioned something about Persian language and how rich it is. One of my favorite, I don't want to say author, he's a philosopher, Rumi. And I have how many, 6 volumes. I think I have all the volumes of his poem, and it's very interesting, and it's translated from Persian to Arabic, and both languages very um, are very rich and flowery,
Mhm.
and lots of metaphors. So it really forces you to think. I also like Najib Mahfouz, and he's a Nobel Prize winner. And I read almost all his novels, and he's one of the most famous Egyptian writers.
Mhm.
But on the academic side, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit biased to my one of my supervisors. His name is Dr. Rob Gibson, and I can consider him the father of sustainability. And
Oh,
he created the sustainability assessment um, model, and ironically we still use the same model till this moment. Of course, he updated the model several times,
mhm.
and um, uh, he's relatively old. I don't want to be stereotyping, but but he witnessed the rise of sustainability concepts, and he said from early 60s, and when talking about these concepts were, it was not a familiar thing.
Mhm.
And his writing is actually a mix of the dry academic approach, but with a
Mhm.
how I say it, humane or human touch,
Mhm.
so without being so um okay, I cannot find the words, the right words, but without being romantic, because
Mhm.
his writing is about something academic,
Mhm.
evidence based, science based, but also there are some aspects in the social sphere, for example. Um, of course, economic, of course, and most of the problems are what we call wicked problems or
Mhm.
complex problems. So, whenever you try to target a specific problem, you find it like an onion. You keep peeling and peeling and peeling. So these are the authors that came to my mind. I'm an avid
Mhm.
reader, but I want to say something.
Yes.
For example, Ruth said, I'm not a reader.
Mhm.
Actually, I think everyone in this class is a reader.
Mhm.
It sometimes we think, okay, yeah, we read only books, or we judge our being a reader by the books that we read. We are reading all the time, even
Mhm.
on Instagram, even on, and we dismiss the value of the knowledge that we are getting, or
Mhm.
the information. There, of course, there is a difference between data, information, and knowledge, but
Mhm.
everyone is a reader. And when I talk to the younger generation, and because I mentor also in some organizations, so I'm dealing with students in the high school.
Mhm.
Although they are not a readers with the conventional term of
Mhm.
a reader,
Mhm.
meaning books, but from debates, from discussions, from uh, um, they have a wealth of information and not data, uh, and semi knowledge that
Yes.
they get from the reading, even on social media. So I don't want to
Mhm.
dismiss these sources, and
Mhm.
maybe we can we can utilize these sources in a better way in the future.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Very good. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, you notice that was why I was trying to lead Rhodas into sharing with us more about her interests, because uh, math is a language all its own, you know, with rules, you know, and things. So and within even within math, there is written language as well. So math is a universal language, you know. Like I said, I love science fiction, and a lot of science fiction stories. They can communicate with extraterrestrial life forms through math and patterns. And Dr. Awaad and Mansour talked about in this poetic writing. Poetry is also rhythmic, right? And this is music. So there's a blending of math with written language, and when you're studying music and poetry, because it has, you know, the meters, and so there's a tempo, and it all in it, it connects us. But yeah, that's absolutely true. We all read, and you know, you'll read something that's fascinating about architecture, in the case of Rhodas, or some math concept. Um, you know, you basically, I think it's rare that someone would just throw out an equation when they're teaching, you know, math concepts. There's some written context that is involved, and the professor is reading that context and communicating to you what those math concepts are through written language, and then you understand the numerical and then the quantitative uh, um, side of that. So very good. So good. That's a great way to connect it, Professor Awaad. Thank you for that. You as you were speaking, it brought me back to when I was a very young boy. You know, I started out, I don't know why, but I was just always, you know, acting up in class. I'm the youngest, you know, my siblings, there's 5 of us. I was the youngest, and for some reason, I just, you know, I guess it took a long time to grow up. But as a young boy, my dad was a school teacher, and you know, he taught high school, you know, the secondary school. He taught math, and he taught what they call industrial arts. So this is you know, wood shop, electronics, and metal shop. He loved those things. He was you know, very tactile kind of a guy, but he was also a mathematician. He loved math. Died quite young. You know, he was finishing his working on his master's in chemistry when he passed away, and I was still a young boy when he passed on. But when I was in middle school, um, I was acting up in this language arts class, and I think it was a class for remedial students. And my dad just showed up one day, and I was shocked to see him standing there in the doorway, because of course I was acting up and misbehaving, and I thought, well, I'm in a lot of trouble. My dad is not even, he doesn't even teach at this school. Somehow he's just here. I think maybe the teacher had called and the principal called, and they had him come over from the high school, and then they walked me out of that class, and I thought, well, for sure I'm going to get punished. But they put me into
My husband, my husband, his mom also was a teacher in the school, and he told me, and he was acting up a lot. Oh my God.
yeah. So they took me and they put me in an advanced language arts course in class with Mrs. Rim. I always remember this teacher's name, but as you were speaking, Professor Arwood, it made me remember she immediately I thought, well, I don't belong here. This is for the smart kids, and I'm dumb. I don't belong in this class. And she said, yes, you belong here. And I said, but I don't read this stuff. You know, they were reading Shakespeare and you know, I mean, some other, you know, some of the Greek classics. And I thought, oh, this is way over my head. You know, this is, I think it was 7th or 8th grade, and I was like, I've never read anything like that. And she said, well, what did you like? And I had just started to take an interest in martial arts because, you know, Bruce Lee was very famous there. I'm telling my age now, you know, but in that during that time, you know, Bruce Lee was had been really, really famous, you know, and people were watching the martial arts movies. And one of my friends, his brother was a martial arts instructor because he had learned martial arts when he was in the Army. And so he was teaching it. And I said, well, you know, I like karate. I didn't even know it was called martial arts. It just because it's just karate. And she says, well, we have magazines in the library, you know, and she started naming off all these different things, you know, Kung Fu and Karate Illustrated and Black Belt Magazine and Inside Kung Fu and
So
Fighting
Professor, you were
Stars
just
magazine.
reading about karate and you were not practically doing it?
Yeah, no. So she just sent me to the library. She said, I want you to come here. And she pulled these magazines off of the shelf. She says, read about these martial arts. And that was the first time I heard the term martial arts. And she said, read about this. And I did, and you know, and she worked with me, and then she found something that I liked, and then I started reading. Well, by the time I graduated from that middle school, I was tutoring high schools in reading in my freshman year. High school students. I actually, it was my summer job, so she changed my life, Mrs. Rim. So yeah, you know, that's absolutely true. What Professor Awaad was saying, we all read and we all, there's things that we like, it engages us. So yeah, so that's why I was really, you know, really getting Rhoda to talk more about the things that interest her, and as she began to talk, I realized that, yeah, it's numbers, but she is reading about numbers as well as she's learning these new concepts, because that's how they teach it. You know, they don't just throw an equation out there. It is explained through the written language, and so yeah. So coming full circle now, the reason why I wanted you to think about it, because I wanted you to think about why you like the things that you read, even if it is poetry, you know, even if it is just quantitative, you know, and analytic, you know, even if it is your childhood content that you grew up reading, like Samuel shared with us. Even if it's that, there's something that connected you with that writing. So as you become a writer, and we're all writers as well as we're all readers, and you establish this, and now that you're writing your thesis, you know, you publish these theses, and as you get, you know, more comfortable with it, you may even go on to want to write more things, and maybe it is just the quantitative content, but you want to convey that to others. Another writer that I didn't mention is Carl Sagan, because someone talked about the science and stuff like that, and how this particular individual was able to make it relevant to everyone. And although they, I think Samuel, you have mentioned it, this person was a Nobel Prize winner, or maybe it was you, Dr. O, I can't remember. But Carl Sagan was a cosmologist, right? He a natural physicist, and a very, very famous one. But he had this ability to take that very complicated, you know, quantum physics, you know, content, and natural physics and cosmology content, and make it so that the common person could understand it and enjoy what he was talking about. He really, really did a lot for that entire community in making people more interested. And of course, Neil deGrasse does that. He was a student of Carl Sagan, and he does the same thing with that. But I just love reading Carl Sagan's books. You know, trust me, I am not an astrophysicist. You know, I'm more right-brained than left-brained. And although my dad was a math instructor, you know, so I'm almost embarrassed to say that, but it's true. And but I do like, and Carl Sagan actually did write a novel called Contact, and they did a movie of that novel with Jodie Foster. One of my favorite movies, in fact. But yeah, so
Yeah,
uh,
I have watched this movie. Yeah.
yes. So yeah, that was written by, the novel was written by Carl Sagan.
Now I
So
will go and try to find the book. I have seen the movie and there were lots of question marks in my
yes,
mind. Now I'm intrigued to read the novel.
yes, good, very good. Yeah, and that's just the way he is. Another writer, another scientist, Michio Kaku, the quantum physicist. He talks a lot about string theory, but what he did was he took the television series Star Trek, and again, I'm a Trekkie and Star Trek nerd, and I'll admit it. And but he took the concept and then he combined it into a book on physics in quantum physics, and he talks about the physics of Star Trek, and it's just really fascinating. So these are all good writers, but we can learn a lot from these writers because what you're doing in your thesis is a lot like what Carl Sagan is doing and what the gentleman that Sami has shared with us is doing. And they're taking these very complex concepts, which is what you're going to be doing, because we're not going to all be subject matter experts who read your thesis, but you're going to take that and you're going to invite us in with the language and make it so that we're engaged. We understand what you're saying. We understand your argument, understand the problem. We understand the solutions that you might be presenting, or some of the suggestions that you're going to be making at the end for the research. So that's so it's just important. That's what you want to do. Okay. So good. So very good. I really enjoyed this conversation. This is really very good. Okay, so let's see what else is in this particular lecture here. Okay, so let's go ahead and okay, so we don't need to talk too much about that. Okay, now I don't want to. Okay, so it's, of course we know we need to do this, right? I teach Professor Awaad and I teach at other institutions, and I teach a lot of different writing courses at different levels. And one of the things that I'm always telling students who are at the undergrad level is that they need to go back and they need to read their writing, but also it's very helpful to have someone else read your writing. And of course, we talked about that in this class, is that we have this thing that goes on in our brains, just fill in the blanks, and it's not on the page, but our brain knows what we want to say. So as we're reading it, we will see words on the page that are not really there, because our brain is telling us that it's there, and we're reading through. And when someone else reads it, they say, "Oh, you're missing a word here. You're kind of, what does this mean?" And you realize, "Oh, wow, I actually didn't write that entire sentence out as I thought I had," because we're the subject matter expert, and this becomes this expert blind spot, right? This happens with professors as well. We'll be teaching and going along and our happy little ways, and the students are completely left behind in the dust. So so that's something to remember as you're any academic writing that you're doing, especially at this level. Have someone else review it and look at it. Okay, it's just important, and that's why you know when you get published, you have a series of editors that look at your work. Like I said, I review. I'm not the only reviewer. I'll review the research article, and they'll have another reviewer review it, and then it goes to the editor, and they'll review it. So a lot of us will review these research articles before they're finally published, and then we'll send revisions, suggestions back to the authors. But yeah, I know I've received reviews after another peer reviewer has looked at it, and and I'll notice, well, they didn't comment on this at all, but they didn't see it. It was something that just wasn't important to them. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about just making sure that we are treating the readers the way we want to be treated as we're reading something and we come across a word. And sometimes it'll just stop us, and then have to go and open up the dictionary, or go online and say, oh, okay, what is this? I'm not really sure what that is. So just be cognizant of that. You don't want them to have to leave your writing and go look it up. So if you know, and sometimes we're just this language is just so intuitive for us. We don't realize that someone else is not going to understand the concept. So don't worry about that. But if it is something that that is unique to your industry, be sure to give some kind of an explanation of what that term is. Okay. So yeah, we don't need to be too literal. Again, I'm not expecting you to create a dictionary to help us to. You're not going to teach us the language of your industry in your thesis. It's just that's not going to happen. We would have to spend years and years in it, as you have done, to understand it at that level. All right, so let's see. Any questions here? Any questions? Anything that you want to look at again? Maybe it's come up as you're writing your proposals, or something as you're writing your thesis. Something that came up, and you're like, we didn't cover this. I'm not sure about it.
I think maybe not related to the document you're sharing, Professor, but I have a question about the table of contents. Do we want those links to be clickable, or is fine to just keep it plain simple, have each page number there? And
Okay, let's do this.
Because that is the point where I have like many pages in my thesis, almost like going towards finishing it up. I would have to see the way to, if it is a requirement, then it would be first I would call it a missed requirement, I think. And then if it is needed to be there, then I think then formatting of my entire paper will change.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not a real stickler on that. When I did my dissertation, my institution was, and so I had, and it's really cumbersome to do it, because every time you change a section within the body of the document, then you have to refresh the table of contents so that everything, is linked. Again, I'm not gonna know. I'm not that particular about that. Dr. Awaad, how do you feel about that?
If we use the word, it will make it clickable automatically. So this will make it easier for updating the table of contents. And I don't know, you can later export it as text only.
So initially, if we are starting as a mapped document where we start with table of contents being clickable links, then it's easier. But if we do it when our document's almost ready, then it would be little difficult to format everything all together.
Yeah, I guess it'd be really tricky when you have section headers. I noticed that it throws off the table of contents. It makes it you have to be very, very careful with that, because when you're in Word, and then it has those options to use those different headings, and then you just have your header 1, header 2, and things like that. If you use that, the Word will import that into the table of contents.
Right.
Each section header and if you change something, you just have to remember to go in and to refresh that table of contents. so that it reformats itself and it catches up with everything. But it can be really tricky to do that. I can tell you this, you won't be adding that when you publish your paper. That's only if you publish it as a book. So journals don't take the table of contents for submissions. So that wouldn't be included when you're submitting it to a journal. But it does make it easy for people to review your thesis, though. So if we can just go in and we can click on that table of contents, and then it takes us to a section. And especially if we want to bookmark it and we want to come back. But what's nice that Word now does what Dr. Awaad was saying. Let me see if I can bring up an example of that. Because what it does is it will just see if
So,
we can bring
So, Professor, I have that experience of doing it. In my
Yeah.
previous project, we were doing the work instructions for our end users, and we thought, okay, let's create one document with table of contents, and then that when users clicking on it, they can directly go on their WI. And it made that because we all had already started, and then later we decided to do it. And I know it didn't work out because then it was ruining the entire formatting of the document. So I
Yes.
can try to do it, but then I mean it would be like, more work in my plate to really resolve that formatting issues. But I can
Yes.
try if it is a requirement. But I would again call it a missed requirement because I didn't see anywhere that it needs to be clickable. It just came in my mind.
Okay. Okay, good. Because I can't find a good put. Just how with this PDF document here for our textbook or ebook, how you click on that and then it brings
So
up this.
for PDF, I agree
Goodness,
it can be because it's just it's just viewable, right? Like the only viewing part is there. We cannot make changes in the PDFs. So
right.
if it is a PDF, it is more organized, I guess. Then formatting is not going here and there because you
Mhm.
I create the Word document, I convert it to PDF. I have my table of contents all together. But if
Mhm.
it is a Word document, yes, it would be difficult to keep it formatted.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. And sometimes with the PDFs, if you when you convert that Word document to the PDF, you might actually lose some of the formatting as far as those hyperlinks in your table of
Correct.
contents. And that table of content is just static in the PDF form. It no longer links to the sections.
Right.
So but anyway, that's just I'm not going to be that particular about that.
Okay.
It's not, I'm really more interested in the content and
Sure.
of the paper, and that you're conveying your the problem and the solutions in the literature, and your methods are where they should be. Okay.
And one more question, sorry. I know since like I'm like towards the end where I'm drafting my thesis and almost will be ready. I'll ping you in a few days. But the other point you brought up about the image needs to be like okay, APA formatted. I
Mhm.
did it, but one question about the image that in somewhere it says like in APA it says that it needs to be italic when it comes to the caption of the image. Um,
Mhm.
but I see I think I saw somewhere italic is no longer a requirement. So
Mhm.
which one I should believe? What is true and what's not?
Um, so let's go here. Let's look at some of the sample figures. Sample bar graph. Okay, here they're using italics. This is the 7th edition.
Mhm.
I This is so Windsor University. We follow the 7th edition of
Mhm.
APA
Okay.
self-formatting. So if it says that in let's see if we can bring up a good one here. It doesn't give us anything there, but if it says to include it, I would include it, or just do it just the way they're
Mhm.
saying to do it. In,
Yes, I
here.
included. I just followed this one, the link you shared earlier, and I
Okay,
made
good.
it italic, but I just saw somewhere, so I thought I should ask you. And I also like added this kind of note which is here to
Mhm.
explain that particular image.
Good, good. Yeah. As long as you're doing that, you're going to be fine. Just stick with this. I'm sure they'll be coming out with an 8th edition, and they'll make some changes, because in the
Yeah.
7th edition, what they did was
Yeah, okay.
for
Maybe that's the difference I was seeing. Maybe 8 is no longer a requirement. Okay. Thank you, Professor. Thank
yeah, right. They might change it. So, like one of the biggest changes in the 7th edition for me is when you're writing your references and you have your reference list. It
you.
used to be you only listed the first 5, and then after that it just said et al. I mean, and there's others, in all the others. But now you list up to 20 authors in the reference list. If it was 20 people working on that research study, you list all of their names up to 20. And I think that has to do with a lot of researchers not getting credit in their bibliographies for their research, because then their name is dropped off of the reference in a lot of these studies that people were doing. So anyway, so any other questions? Those are great questions. Any
No,
other questions?
Professor, I am good. I think I'm good other than that. And I think I will look forward to your review, and then I'll make final changes according to your review. And then I think I should be all good. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. As I said, I'm looking forward to reading it. I'm just going to be very, very good.
Sure.
Mansoor, Rodas, do you have any questions? Anything you want us to bring up that we maybe you glossed over, or we just didn't cover at all, but you had some questions about it? Has come up as you're writing your proposals?
Not
No
at the
questions
professor, but
for me.
in case if we got any question, then we can share with you through WhatsApp.
Okay, absolutely. And Rodas, I'm sorry, you were going to say?
Yes. Yeah, my answer was similar with Masur's.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you very much, Professor.
You're very welcome. And I know that Dr. Awaad has been doing an excellent job with the both of you. So you're probably getting all of your questions answered as you work with Dr. Awaad. So, but as I say, I don't drag these things out, because I need to fill in 2 hours. I think we've covered what we need to cover today. As you've all said, you can reach out to us anytime you have questions. I am looking forward to reading your draft, Samia. You just ping me with a message in WhatsApp when you're
Sure,
ready for
Professor.
me to do that.
Definitely. I too am looking forward towards your review.
Okay, good, very good. Well, this has been outstanding. I've really enjoyed this. Next week will just be this much of the same. That'll be our last lecture. And if you want, you can come if you want to share something with us about yourself, your hobbies. I would love to hear about that and your plans going forward. So next week, just come and it won't be, you don't have to do a formal presentation or anything like that, but just come prepared to just share with us where your career path, and I'll do the same. I'll share with you where I see my career path going from this point on. Okay.
Sure, Professor.
Um,
Looking forward to it. Definitely.
Good. Well, if there's nothing else, I enjoyed this lecture. It's a great conversation. This is just really fun. This is one of the advantages of having a small class. We can never do that with 30 people, right?
Yeah, like we go in HR class and there is like so many students. So I think most of the times we are all quiet.
Yeah, a class like that would go on for 5 or 6 hours if everyone spoke up like that. But thank you for your input. wonderful lecture. Have a wonderful rest of your day, wonderful weekend. Please stay safe, and we'll see you next week.
Sure. Thank you, Professor. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.